Thank you. My name is Tanner Smith. I'm the mayor of the town of Wise. And as Reverend Winters said just a second ago, that this is a special day. This truly is a special day. There's a lot of things that I've done in my tenure as mayor of the town of Wise. And some of the things I enjoy doing, some of the things I do because I've got to do it because I'm the mayor of the town of Wise. And some of the things I do, I get touched and I feel that it's a very proud moment. And I'm going to tell you something. Today is a very proud moment for the town of Wise and the citizens of the town of Wise and for this library. On behalf of the citizens and on behalf of the Wise Town Council, I would like to thank everybody that was involved in putting this celebration together today for the celebration of the library. It means a lot, not only to our community, but it means a lot to citizens of the town of Wise. And we're very honored to have a library of this stature located in the town of Wise. And I looked around and I saw a high school friend I went to school with, and I got a hug. Kathy, thank you for that. I don't get many hugs anymore, but she came up and hugged me, so I felt so proud for that too. But we were talking of all the things that we've participated in and different things that we've done, not only at the library, but in this room in particular. And you know, I look back at the time that my wife had several paintings and pictures paintings and drawings that she had and she put up here. And another proud moment was when my grandmother would work with the group that put quilts, made quilts, and they would display the quilts up here. And Grandma always made sure that I'd come up to see her quilt. So that's something that I've always been proud of. And then having this room attached to the library and just everything that they do has been a tremendous opportunity for people in the town of Wise and people that, and not only Wise, but in this community to be able to share and to experience. Again, on behalf of the town of Wise and the Wise Town Council, I welcome you to this event. I thank you very much for asking me to be here, and congratulations. Thank you.
As I look out, it's a large, and many of the people that I see here have had a role in some way over the years in helping advance librarianship, the Wise County Library, and now the Lonesome Pine Regional Library. We're going to begin the program today with a brief movie that was produced, as you can see, by 3 residents of Wise County who were deeply involved in helping promote the library. The organization, the building, the marketing, the raising of public awareness and funds. Let me jump back and just say, as some of you know, I'm a historian by education and practice. And I thought before we showed the movie, I would just say a couple of things that led up to what this movie is going to depict. After World War II, there were a number of residents in Wise County who wanted to have a public library and access for books for their families and children. And they talked about it and they worked toward it. But it was not until 1955-56, following the federal government passing a piece of legislation to encourage the building or developing of libraries in rural areas, that the movement came to Southwest Virginia. And Abington was the first area. And there was a resident from Wise County who was on the faculty of Clinch Valley College at the time, brand new, just opened up the college, who was over at a meeting in Abington and talked with the librarian there about what was going on. And she came back here. She also happened to be involved with another faculty member that you're all going to get a chance to hear from today, Dr. Helen Lewis. And she, that was Professor, and Helen Lewis as members of the newly organized American Association of University Women Norton chapter, which had just been developed, they took it upon themselves to develop the support, the strength, the political action that led to the creation of the Wise Public Library. And now it's at this point we're going to join the short, we hope it's going to work. My good colleague over there is shaking her head yes, because she knows that I am not a very good technology person. So we're going to turn it over to turn on the video, and then we're going to pick up some of the program. Thank you.
Is the story of how the people of Wise County, Virginia got a public library. Wise County is in the extreme southwestern section of the state, 360 miles from the state capital. This is Powell Valley, surrounded by rugged and beautiful mountains. Powell Mountain lies to the south, Stone Mountain to the north. There are 56,000 people living in the 414 square miles of these hills and valleys which compose Wise County. How did Wise County get a public library? Many groups over the years have talked about and sought a library. Recently, a small group of women, many of them teachers in the county schools and members of the American Association of University Women, decided to try to revive and organize the interests of all the groups in the county. What did they do? They talked with their neighbors. They wrote letters to businessmen, to political leaders, to teachers, to ministers, and to club groups. Clubs throughout the county work together to get the public library. Kiwanis clubs, women's clubs, Lions clubs, garden clubs. They wrote resolutions, circulated petitions, and contacted the supervisors. Groups of citizens with resolutions and letters and petitions appeared before the Board of Supervisors, asking them to apply for a demonstration library. They explained to the supervisors that the state provides the bookmobile, books, and staff to operate the library for a trial period. The area in which it is located would provide the housing, furnishings, and shelves. The Norton City Council was also contacted. People explained to the council that if the demonstration library proved successful and the county took it on permanently, the bookmobile and books would then be given to the area. Officials and the City of Norton officials appointed an advisory board composed of a group of citizens, the county school superintendent, housewives, teachers, businessmen. They were to make arrangements for the coming of the library, to work with the library staff, and later to make recommendations to the supervisors on the success or failure of the trial. The Extension Division of the State Library worked closely with the board and helped throughout the process, meeting with club groups, helping to present the plans of the demonstration. The VFW post in Wise offered its building for the public library. Club women and other groups made curtains and supervised the cleaning of the building. sales, the county and city of Norton appropriated money for materials. Other contributions came from towns, clubs, and individuals throughout the county. And the library opened. It was a library on trial. Would it work? Would people read? From the beginning they came, and they read. When it snowed, when it rained, in all kinds of weather. Children missed the bus to walk home after school. They were loaded with books. Family drove from all parts of the county. They came and they read. Whole families came together to the library. Children, of course. Children who checked out picture books. Making books available helps establish the habit of reading. One of the most valuable habits a child can establish. The library has current magazines and newspapers to help us understand the world around us and to keep our hearts from being lonely. There are stories for family reading. Here in the world of books, the child finds adventure, romance, knowledge. About 1/2 of the books checked out are children's books. Children are enthusiastic readers. The library staff brings skills and training which change boxes of books into a library. Helpful, courteous, enthusiastic, they guide the reading interests of the people. High school students find reference material to supplement the school libraries, material for term papers, and book reviews, books to enlarge their horizons and help them decide on life's work. There are magazines and books to make everyday living more fun, or even to give a vacation right at home. Adults find books on hobbies, books to help in classifying a collection of fossils found in the area, books to help people enjoy the things around them. Wonderful to see a youngster learn to use a library. How seriously he searches the catalog for that special book. How carefully he makes his selection. Here is the Bookmobile, a 2,500 book library on wheels. The staff are ready to make a trip. Now they're ready. And here they go, taking books to the people. The Bookmobile circulates approximately 5,000 books monthly. Here's mystery, romance, and poetry on wheels, visiting 23 towns and communities throughout the county, even the most remote places. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Books put beauty and joy into the hearts of the people. Here's the bookmobile at one of its regular stops. People of all ages await the arrival of the roving library and they climb aboard to make their selections. Here in the world of books, a child is an individual, not a mass audience, not one of a class, but an individual finding new worlds of adventure and knowledge. The bookmobile on the trail of Lonesome Pine. At Rhoda, a small mountain village, the children of the school meet the bookmobile. And to them, it brings new worlds. It opens new doors. The mining of coal is the main occupation of the people, and the bookmobile visits many of the coal towns, the collieries. Here are rows of coke ovens. They produce coke from black gold from the hills, and it is shipped away primarily to steel mills. Here is some of the coke moving machinery. Coal has built a great industrial empire. It is something of a great natural resource, but the greatest resource of all lies within the people. And the bookmobile brings books to feed the minds of people. Here is a lorry pouring coal down into one of the ovens. Coke loading machinery. Wetting down a coke oven ready to pull the coke. Here, machinery is pulling the coke from the interior of the oven. The teacher of a nearby school brings her students, for she knows it is books which carry ideas and preserve them for future use. Yes, coal mining, coal processing, and coke making constitute the major industry of the people who use the bookmobile. The library serves people from all walks of life. For many, it is a way of continuing education after school days are over. For others, there are books of pleasure, books on history, books on philosophy, books to help people learn things they didn't get in school, books on religion, farming, carpentry, painting, gardening. Students find books on dressmaking. Their following careful instructions result in fine creations of clothing. Here they are trying on some of the product. Good books make family living more fun. One half the adult reading is serious non-fiction. The professional man finds books for relaxation, or books to help him in his profession. Mechanics, craftsmen, the amateur or the professional finds how-to-do-it books and uses them. Garden club members find books on flower arranging. Books help to make the club program a success. In this library, there are books for everyone.
Some of you in the audience may remember some of those sites from back in the late 50s and early 60s. For those of us like Lou Ellsworth who did not arrive here until 1990, I did not know where the first library was, but it's on what we call Library Hill, and the Sturgill Law Firm occupies the building today as you come in from Norton. There were other things in that film that was presented to the Board of Supervisors in 1960 when that board had to make the decision. Was what was going on in that film, as depicted in the film, in that library in the old VFW building, was it worth becoming supported on a continuing basis by the Board of Supervisors and the City of Norton Council? There's a couple of people in the audience remember how that lobbying of the Board of Supervisors went on, because their daddy was on the Board of Supervisors, and they remember the letters that came in through the mail and the meetings and the telephone calls. Nat Parsons' daughters, Phyllis Hatcher and Sarah Gibson, are here representing Napoleon's family. There are other people, I'm sure, in the audience that remember how Helen Lewis worked so hard organizing the people, both in 1958 and the group that deluged the Board of Supervisors and the City Council, that what was an experiment ought to become a way of life, a way of education, a way of recreation for all the citizens of Wise County. That person is Dr. Helen Lewis, who is now going to reminisce a little bit about those very early days in mobilizing support so that all citizens of Wise County would have access to a place that had a wide array of services, even though there were only 3 employees at the library originally. Helen, would you like to come up and reminisce?
I would like to say that I am responsible, fully responsible for this great organization, but it's not so. But I am really grateful that I had the opportunity to be involved in helping get it going. And so I kind of wanted to reminisce a little bit about what went on and how it was not me, but it was, I could say it's the women of this county who really did make this happen. At least that was one of the main things that would maybe give me my pocketbook. I need my glasses. I'm sorry. Thank you. I should have brought them. I just fiddled. Thank you. At the time, I was the librarian at the University of New Clinch Valley College, and I got a call from the state saying that they wanted to do a demonstration library here, but they didn't know exactly how to get it going, and would I help and involve it. And at that particular time, I was involved with Betty Gillum and Posey Riggs and several other women in organizing a university with our University Women's Club. And I suggested to this club that they take on the responsibility of finding and developing a real group of people to promote getting the demonstration library. And I had gotten the call from the state library saying that they were ready to do a demonstration library. They would bring the books, they would bring a bookmobile, and all we had to do was find a space and get ready for them and be of some help. So I took on that responsibility and started organizing through the University Women to develop a real group of women who would push the Board of Supervisors. And I talked to Joe Smitty and some folks who knew the politics of the thing, and they said, well, you really need to overwhelm them a little bit. And so I thought, well, we'll overwhelm them with people from all the clubs and women from every place in the county. And so a couple of people, Betty Gillum and Posey Riggs, and I got in our cars and started driving around the county looking for women's clubs and women's societies or groups of women who would take on part of this responsibility of building a real support system for a public library. And one of the things that we did was look for a building. We would have to promise a building and a space, and they would send the books and they would send the other things. And so, but we needed to be able to get things going. And so we started looking for a housing. And what we found was the VFW had a sort of a clubhouse where they got together and drank and did things like that. No, I'm kidding. They had good meetings, I'm sure. But anyway, we decided that would be a good building if they would give it to us or let us use it, and which they decided to do. And so therefore we took over the old VFW building out on where, who has it now? A law firm has it now. But anyway, we went out there and it needed a good bit of work. So I went to the jail and asked if they had some prisoners who could help us clean up this building. And so I got the name Long Chain Charlie. Here I would go. They said, "You're the only woman that's ever come to the jail and taken prisoners out to work." So anyway, I would pick up the prisoners and we'd go over there and we'd clean the place up and get it looking pretty good. And then Betty Gillum and Posey Riggs and I traveled around all the towns in the county and looked for women's clubs or women who would be willing to sort of do some work to gather these people together. And so we ended up developing a real strong group of supporters who, when it, so the state library sent down a bookmobile, sent down books, sent down staff, and did a library for us for about a year. And at the end of that time, we had to decide to take it or not take it. So all of the women went back to their communities and they brought the women in. So we filled up I think both the courthouse and the jail and everything with women when the Board of Supervisors were meeting. And so I think they didn't dare not approve of a demonstration library. So you saw some of the results of the film showed that it was working. And so it was pretty much impossible for the men club to get their building back. And and so we visited every club in the county, and I hauled jail men back and forth to help do that. And we also got the VOTEC people to build shelves. And so we ended up with the state sending down a bookmobile, the books, a person who would run the place for the period of time. And so that was the beginning of, and who was responsible was not me, but it was the women from all over the county, because we had visited every group and they all showed up. And so I think that the Board of Supervisors didn't have the nerve to not approve of the demonstration library after the end of the year, when we either had to take it on or send it back. And so we didn't send it back, but we did begin the Wise County Public Library. So that's a good way of getting advantage of, and my getting up here and saying I'm responsible for this great thing. It was the women of this county and the women's clubs that really pushed it, and they showed up in great numbers, and I think people would be, the Board of Supervisors would have been afraid to go home if they hadn't approved it. So that's a little bit of what was going on and the way in which the community itself did agree and did take on the responsibility of getting this library. So it's particularly the women. So let's say hello for the women. So that's the Women's Club has done that. So that's, I appreciate the possibility to come and tell you that it was the women of Wise County that got this library going.
Thank you, Helen. It's amazing her memory, one of her friends what drove her over here today, Helen is now living in Abington, but reminded me, she said, you know, Helen is 93 years old. And think of how well she remembers what went on. And also, if any of you know Helen Lewis, you know that she's been involved in a wide array of activities over the decades here. And what she always has hoped and thought would make life better for the citizens of Wise County. Helen, thank you very much for all you've done. All right, our next item on the program is some music by the Norton Elementary Choir with Miss Gabby Barnett, director.
This event, our kids are in the middle of a musical at our school and they're doing Aladdin, so they're going to sing a couple of songs of Aladdin.
Baba had them 40 thieves, Sherazade had 1,000 tales. Mister, you're in luck, 'cause up your sleeve you got a brand that never fails. You got some power in your corner now, some heavy ammunition in your camp. You got some punch, the sad job, who and how, so all you gotta do is turn that lamp. And I'll say, Mr. Aladdin, sir, what will your pleasure be?
It's a big musical.
Let me take your order, jot it down, you ain't never had a friend like me. No, 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 life is your restaurant.
And I'm your method dinner.
Come on, whisper what it is you want.
You ain't never had a friend like me.
Yes, sir, we pride ourselves on service.
You're the boss, the king, the all.
Say what you wish, it's your tradition. How about a little more baklava? Have some of column A, try all of column B.
Getting cranked up.
Yeah. That's our house, you know, they're getting ready to get in.
We are so sorry, and hopefully that will not happen to the next.
It's a bright new star, oh come be the first on the block to meet his eye. When you wait, here he comes, ring the bells, ring the drums. Prince Ali, fabulous, Ali Abawa. Genuflect, show some respect, down on one knee. And come and meet spectacular coterie. Prince Ali, mightiest Ali Abawa, strongest 10 regular men. zoo, I'm telling you.
Last menagerie.
Prince of Legacy, Alibaba. Have to see how he has made between the years. He'll get out of this place. Adjust your veil of green hearts. Turn to crocodiles was there and when he dresses. He's got 95 white Persian monkeys. And to view them he charges no fee. He's got slaves, he's got servants and flunkies. Proud to work for him, bow to his will, well serving him. They're just lousy loyalty to Ali. Prince Ali, Prince Ali. Ever seen Alibaba? Heard your princess was a sight lovely to see. And that good people is why he got up and dropped by with 60 elephants, swans galore, with his bears and lions and brass bands and more, with his floating makers, his cooks, his bakers, his birds, and wobble on he made room for Prince Ali. This is our last song for you all. Thank you so much. A whole new world, a new fantastic point of view. No one to tell us no or where to go, or say we're only dreaming. A whole new world, a dazzling place I never knew. But when I'm way up here, it's crystal clear, and now I'm in a whole new world with you. I'm in a whole new world with you. Unbelievable sights, indescribable feeling, soaring, tumbling, freewheeling through an endless timeless sky. A whole new world. Don't you dare close your eyes. 100,000 dreams together. I'm like a shooting star. I've come so far. I can't go back to where I used to be. Every turn a surprise. New horizons to pursue. I'll chase them anywhere. There's time to spare. Let me share this whole new world with you. A whole new world. That's where we'll be. A thrilling chase. A wondrous bliss. For you and me. We always love coming up here to sing, so thank you all for letting us give you a little preview of our show.
Thank you.
The crowd wailing. Good job, Gabby. Appreciate you.
Oh, yeah, there's always good things coming as well. All fine.
Dr. Lewis emphasized the role of women, and she was right on target in helping get the Wise County Library started. It went so well that within a decade of actually being authorized to operate the library, not as a demonstration library, but as a locally supported library. Within a decade, that building down there on Library Hill on the Norton Wise Road was just about out of space because they were doing so many things. And it was at that point, about 1970, that the board of the library began to think about where should they locate, should they expand that building, should they find a new location. Our next speaker, father was on the committee, Kent Briggs, that helped determine where the new library, a new library, would be located. And as you will note also in your materials, and as Dr. Lewis has mentioned, Kent's wife, this next speaker's mother, had been active from the beginning in the establishment of the library, Posey Briggs. So we are indeed honored to have the daughter come back as we recognize the 60 years of labor started by women, but the males began to contribute, not only voting on the Board of Supervisors and on the town council, and occasionally speaking up, but also becoming active in the what we would call the governance of the library. Kathy is here from South Carolina. She's going to do a reading for us. Kathy Riggs Menotti, welcome.
What a great honor it is for me to be here with you all today, and to have Mom and Dad both remembered in this way. You know, everybody who knows Mom knows that her great passion was this library. She believed so strongly that books and all the learning that could be had in this building were the key to a great life, and she wanted that for everybody in Wise County. So I thank you for remembering her today. I thank her for the work that she did, and along with my brothers, two of whom are, or one of whom is here, two couldn't be here, my sisters-in-law, my mom's grandchildren and mom's great-grandchildren who are also here today. We thank you for this opportunity. When Julie asked me if I would consider doing a reading today, I immediately knew what I thought I wanted to share with you. And it is a little passage from a novel that I have just finished. And I started this novel the week after Mom passed away. We came home for her funeral, and as we drove back to South Carolina, it just came to me in a big way that there was a story I needed to tell. And so I'm going to read a little bit for you, just a little passage from that novel. It takes place in Scott County and in Wise County. It's a work of historical fiction, and it's the story of a fiery young girl who comes of age just before the Civil War. I had a great time researching this book. I learned a lot about how different the Civil War looked here in these mountains. I didn't realize that. And I'm very thrilled to say that a large part of my research came from my grandmother's genealogy books. She wrote extensively about the Osborns and the Carters and the Alleys in Scott County, Virginia, and I used her books as the basis for a lot of this research. The section that I'm going to read is actually voiced by my primary character, Elizabeth, the young girl. This is her teacher, and her name is Miss Kitchens, and she has come to Southwest Virginia in the mid-1800s as a teacher. She came from Charlottesville. Her father is actually a university professor at the University of Virginia. And this passage, she talks about how she found the women of this area, which I love that we're talking about women so much today, to be so different from the women that she knew in Northern Virginia, something that my mother would echo frequently. So I know that she's pleased that this is what I'm sharing. In this particular passage, Miss Kitchens, the teacher, is on a train, and she is returning to Charlottesville from Southwest Virginia. She's just had an incident, an ugly incident with a man on the train, and that leads her to reflect on the women of Southwest Virginia. So, Mom, this is for you. Marilee, 1861. We were reboarding the train when a stranger came to me and slipped a piece of paper into my seat. "I saw it happened," she said quietly, "this woman in a black bonnet and cape. It's my hope you will join our effort." And then she disappeared. I sat there a long while thinking about Henry and the awful man, about my very impulsive reaction to his insults. I'd surprised him, there was little question. But I'd surprised myself as well, and where had such brash behavior come from? I know people like him exist. I'm no stranger to divisive issues. In fact, I can argue for or against many of them, so familiar am I. It's a gift of my upbringing and of my father's influence, I think, the ability to view an issue from both sides. But there's also a downside to this sensibility. It's cerebral, an exercise one does in one's head. So a physical reaction, impulsive, passionate, committed, has not been a part of my makeup. It's why, I'm sure, many people find me to be stiff, perhaps even rigid. I'm tall to begin with, and I carry myself erect, my spine straight and long. It's something I didn't notice until I came to Southwest Virginia and encountered the women there. They are not like my peers in Charlottesville, who live as if there's a plate of glass between them and the world. No, these mountain women are a different breed altogether. Women born of the earth with a strong, determined sense of right and wrong. Tenacious women who fight their way through every day fierce and proud. They pull food from the ground or wrestle it down and butcher it bloody. They snap peas and churn butter and carry water. They chop wood and tend fires. They nurse the sick, lend a hand, care for neighbors in need for miles around. They mind the children, and they suffer their husbands, who without the tenacity of the female spirit are often driven to excess in drink and self-indulgence. And they bury their babies. They bury far too many babies, their wails echoing over the mountains in cries that travel ridge to ridge, generation to generation. Life is hard, a battle. This fact these women know and acknowledge freely, wearing its scars as armor. And yet it is in this difficulty that they find such strength and purpose. Their very survival depends on determination and grit. Their souls are made of it, I think, and anchoring like 2 feet planted solid and unwavering. Their shoulders squared. It's a posture I admire, one of loyalty, fierce and defiant. What it must be to feel something so sure. There's a balance on the other side. I should like to say that too. Something lovely and grace-filled. For these women hold hard to their faith. They love deep and wide, extending broad their arms with no reservation or judgment. They will sweep you up and pull you close, rocking and singing, soothing whatever savage hold has you in its grips. And then they whisper, there now, baby. It's all right. Everything will be fine. I have not found it elsewhere, the honesty in these women. There's a truth in their lives that makes you know, even in the worst of times, even in the floods, the ground beneath their feet will hold. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Now, as we journey along on this historical trip, getting ever closer to today, I just want to point out a couple of highlights before we come to the people who are responsible today for providing the funding for our ongoing venture here. The building was built and opened about 1974, 75. And then it wasn't large enough. So in 1987, a wing was added to the building. We're in that wing right now, part of the wing. And then because the building got such heavy use by the residents, citizens of Wise County, etc., even though now there was a regional library headquarters based here, and we're going to hear a little bit about that in just a few minutes, the people came, the people learned, the whole new world was open to them. And then it had to be redecorated because it had been here. And again, one of the people that participated in the freshening up, as they would say, of this library in 1997 is Sarah Gibson, that daughter of Napoleon Gibson. Sarah, you're here somewhere, or you were here. She's in the back. As she did for the Big Stone Gap Library and the Pennington Gap Library and at least one others. And that brings me to our next speaker, who is, of course, very central to the ongoing operation of the library. Ms. Dana Kilgore, a longtime resident of Wise County, a professor out at the UVA Wise, a longtime member of the Board of Supervisors, and now chair of the Board of Supervisors. Dana?
First of all, I want to say congratulations to the library board staff, the friends of the library, and all that have supported the Wise County Public Library over the last 60 years. I'm thankful for the American Association of University Women that in 1957 they decided to promote the establishment of this library, and that has benefited so many over the 60 years period. My first connection to the library was the large bookmobile. I attended Reiner School on Indian Creek, a 2-room schoolhouse, until the 4th grade, and we were consolidated into Pound. And that's where the bookmobile would arrive in my life. And it came to the Pound, and we all lined up, just like you saw on the film. I didn't know they were going to show that film, but it was big excitement. We went by rooms, and you knew the bookmobile was outside, and you would get your turn to go to the bookmobile. Now, why was it so important to us? Well, in the 50s and 60s, life was not easy in Wise County for the majority of the people. They were hardworking. It was not easy. We had few books in our homes. Basically, we had, a Bible, and we had I think we had a storybook of Bible stories, and our rented school books. We rented our school books every year, and we turned them back in, so we didn't even get to read them again. You read them, and then you turned them back in at the year end. So very few books were in our homes, and other than those few items. And this was the day of black and white television. And some of you all can remember that, and some maybe not. But we only had one channel. On Indian Creek, we only got Huntington, West Virginia, NBC. So it was a period of black and white. There were no iPhones, no computers. So that large bookmobile made a big impression on me. It was very important to me that I could go into that bookmobile and pick out books. The bookmobile contained a selection of biographies that attracted me. And I can remember, I think it was little blue books or something. I can remember they were a little small book. And from these books, I could read about presidents of the United States. I read about a man that was born in a log cabin in Kentucky, and I identified with that because that was just across the mountain. And Kentucky was. I didn't realize how far in Kentucky he was born. But with hard work, he became president. These simple little books showed me that with hard work and determination, we could be successful and we could travel the world. In later years, as a teenager living in Wise, the library on the Norton Wise Road was the pathway to knowledge and dreams. The library has contributed to many success of many in our region, and I'm sure everybody that grew up in the late 50s and 60s could tell you similar stories about how important that library on that hill was for all of us. Today, the world is different. We have computers, smartphones, and we have over 100 stations on our television. but not everyone has those resources to purchase or repair their technology. Maybe they need help in doing research. Maybe someone wants to know the best lawnmower to buy. Whatever. They can come to the library for a resource. This library adds to the quality of life of the citizens in Wise County and the city of Norton with their many programs. Today, it's a gathering place for all ages, from small children to the retirees. And it is great pleasure that on this Thursday, at a regular board meeting of the Wise County Board of Supervisors, that we will honor the library with a proclamation for their 60th anniversary. And thank you for letting me have a part of your day today and participate in this great program.
Thank you, Professor Kilgore, Chair of the Board of Supervisors of Wise County. As you have heard, this has been a partnership from the beginning, not only of women and men, but of government entities. And the leading partner with the Wise County Board of Supervisors from the very beginning has been the City of Norton. Today we have with us Mr. Joe Fallbush, who is Vice Mayor of the City of Norton. Joe?
Thank you, Lou. As Lou said, I'm Joe Fallbush. I'm the Vice Mayor of the City of Norton, and I'm very proud to represent the citizens of Norton here on this special occasion. It's with sincere regret that our Norton-appointed board member, Mr. Lan Mulaski, could not be here this evening due to a recent health issue, but Lan has been a very great advocate of the library, and we and the citizens of Norton are very proud of the work Lan has done for the library and for us in the City of Norton. As most of you may know, as Dana said, we do fund the library locally, but local municipalities are facing ever dwindling resources and revenues to our localities, and we've had to make some very tough decisions here in the last few years of what outside entities we will fund, and some of those have to take some cuts, and the library board, it was no exception to that. Through all this process, we come to realize how important the library is to us, not only in Wise County, but the City of Norton. The citizens of Norton and our city become very reliant on the library. A couple of the examples of the services that we have recently come to be aware of that the library provides in the City of Norton is one, the book exchange program at the Regency Towers, which is a housing entity for our elderly citizens, and for that we're very appreciative. And recently the library became very involved in our farmers market and having a book exchange program there for folks that can't make it to the library here in Wise. And for that, we're very appreciative as well. Last Tuesday evening, at our last council meeting, we did pass a proclamation, and we do want to present this to the library today, and hopefully you will proudly display it on your wall. And I do want to read this to you this evening. In recognition of the Wise County Public Library 60th anniversary, whereas the Wise County Board of Supervisors, excuse me, I didn't bring my glasses, with the unanimous endorsement of the City of Norton Council, voted to seek a library demonstration grant to operate a public library to serve the Wise County and the City of Norton. And whereas the State Library Board approved the demonstration grant to operate the public library in the former VFW building on the Wise Norton Road. Whereas the Wise County Public Demonstration Library officially opened to the public November 22, 1958 with 3 employees, as stated before, a large bookmobile, and several thousand newly purchased books. And whereas the Wise County Public Library continue to expand with the ongoing financial support of the Wise County and the City of Norton, the Library of Virginia, several residents, civic organizations, and companies, so that the facilities of the Norton Wise Road were deemed inadequate, and a new library was constructed on the June Vickers Orchard property in the Wise area and dedicated on July the 27th, 1975. And whereas over the existing decade, the Wise County Public Library offered programs for all ages, outreach services, library initiative, job seeker and small business resources, and growing information services and other means for community support, learning, and economic growth, so that a large addition to the facility was built in 1987. Whereas the Wise County Public Library continues to play an integral part in the intellectual, educational, and recreational health and well-being of our community through the mission of cultivated lifelong learning and to the lead information provider and to the enhanced local economy. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Norton City Council hereby celebrates the 60th anniversary of the founding of the Wise County Public Library, presented by the Norton City Council on April the 8th, 2018. And we hope you would proudly display this, Ms. Amy. And one other thing I want to share about the bookmobile, when it did come to my neighborhood, it was the only air-conditioned facility in the city of Norton. And we would spend hours in there looking through the books, but thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much. Our last formal presentation will be made by Ms. Amy Bond, who is the director of the Lonesome Pine Regional Library. She's also a native who came home here, having worked at the library earlier and then had some other professional opportunities. And so she's been working hard building a library system across the various counties. She's our boss, and she knows libraryship extremely well. Amy?
I am so happy today to be a part of this celebration. I too have many fond memories of Wise County Public Library. Beginning as a young child, we lived in West Norton, but just about every weekend my mother would bring me up to the old VFW building to check out books. So that's where I got my love of libraries and love of books. And then later on, we moved to Wise out on Birchfield Street, and the bookmobile came out there, you know, to my area of town. So then I became a bookmobile kid. And I really loved it. Now I'm proud to be back in my hometown library, serving as the director of Lonesome Pine Regional Library. We're just a sprawling regional library system that grew out of the success of Wise County Public Library. And gosh, how we have grown out of the inspired effort that started with Wise County. Thanks to the forward thinking of our founders from Wise County and the city of Norton that we are honoring today. So just briefly, in case you don't know just how big Lonesome Pine Regional Library is, I want to share a little bit of the scope of our regional library system. We now have 9 libraries spanning 4 counties. And as you know, Wise County began in 1958. And then in 1964, Clintwood joined with their library, and that was actually in 1964 the birth of the regional library system. In 1967, Pennington Gap joined their library to the system. In 1970, the town of Hayside joined on. 1972, Coburn and Gate City joined. In 1974, Big Stone Gap joined the system. In 1975, St. Paul joined. And then in 1979, the community of Rose Hill joined our library system. So, and now we are the largest multi-jurisdictional regional public library system in the state of Virginia. And our service area is 1,716 square miles. That is a lot of miles, believe you. And currently, over 300,000 visitors walk through our library doors every year. And our libraries house nearly 400,000 books and media and transport over 40,000 of those to fill requests to library patrons between our branches every year. Residents of our counties check out over 505,000 items annually. And today, this is not only books, but this includes e-books and a wide array of digital electronic library materials. And we're not just books now, even though that's our main thing. We are also the foremost provider of public access computing and Wi-Fi in our library communities, as well as we are the foremost provider of public copying, printing, and fax services. And so for the future, I believe it is bright as the past, as we are committed to being the cornerstone of the region where children and adults can experience personal enrichment and connect with one another. So I want to thank you for letting me be a part of the evolution and development of this wonderful and special library system that began right here in Wise County. So in closing, I would just want to say, remember our motto, start here, go anywhere.
Well, as we wrap up, I want to acknowledge that the long-term driver of the bookmobile that we began to see in the video and we've heard all the way through several presentations, Mr. Varner is here. And I also want to urge you to look at the exhibit that the staff here has put together of newspaper stories and other photographs about the evolution of the library here in the system. It's out on the wall as you go out for a reception. That I hope you will stay with us and enjoy with us. And I also want to acknowledge the hard work of my colleague Julie Short, who is the director of the Wise Library. She took that on when we were having some budget cuts. She has actually worked many years with the regional library. She's the assistant director of the Lonesome Pine Regional Library, and she is the one who really should get credit for getting us all together today to celebrate 60 years of the history, good deeds, good work of the Wise Public Library, and also to help us remind each other that the library reflects a community-wide effort of citizens, of civic organizations, of governmental entities, of corporations, coal companies. You can read about some of these long-standing donors, people who helped keep the library going in a robust way. They're, as you come in, the main entrance of the building. Government entities, which we all rely on, friends groups, including the Friends of Wise Public Library, who helped organize the reception, etc., out here. If the library is to continue to be introduced people to a whole new world, as the Norton kids sang about. If the Wise County Library and the Lonesome Pine Regional Library are to continue to evolve and change and reflect the new ways of learning and the new technologies that are out there, as you heard Amy Bond mention, we lead in the providing of Wi-Fi services in many of the areas of our region. All you have to do is drive up here someday quietly and look in the parking lot of the number of people early in the morning, late at night, who are out here, not doing what some of you think, parking in the old way, but using the Wi-Fi because they have access to it here. Yes, that is the responsibility of all of us, my fellow board members who are here, the leadership, the citizens of the area, to help support the public library evolve. So many of you can come back and celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Wise Library. Thank you for being here. Come join us at the reception and have a good day. Spring is coming, I think.